seeking to impose a graven image upon the living Christ, is the very essence of the consciousness of Antichrist that was embodied by the devil and Satan. Thus, when Peter sought to impose his image of Christ as the triumphant king upon me, he was trapped in the consciousness of Antichrist and was actually acting as an extension of the devil, tempting me one more time. Would I conform to one of the graven images of this world, or would I refuse to be limited by anything springing from the consciousness of Christ? Thus, the sternness of my rebuke was born of the fact that I was rebuking the entire planetary consciousness of Antichrist, the very consciousness that has kept humankind trapped in the state of spiritual death for thousands of years. I was also aiming to set an obvious example for how those who follow the true path of Christ need to be alert to the very subtle temptation to conform to a graven image, sometimes coming from those from whom you least expect it. Thus, you need to rebuke and challenge that consciousness whenever you encounter it. 3 last pages to the chapter. You may still think I was being unnecessarily harsh toward Peter, but I knew Peter's high potential and his low potential. I knew there was a very fine line, as there is for most people, between Peter taking the high road and the low road. Unfortunately, Peter did indeed take the low road, as evidenced by the following quotes that are also often ignored by Christian preachers. Quotation. Now Peter sat without in the palace, and a damsel came unto him, saying, "Tu also wast with Jesus of Galilee." But he denied before them all, saying, "I know not what thou sayest." And when he was gone out into the porch, another maid saw him, and said unto them that were there, "This fellow was also with Jesus of Nazareth." And again he denied with an oath, "I do not know the man." And after a while came unto him they that stood by, and said to Peter, "Surely thou also art one of them, for thy speech betrayeth thee." Then began he to curse and to swear, saying, "I know not the man." And immediately the cock crew. And Peter remembered the word of Jesus, which said unto him, "Before the cock crow, thou shalt deny me thrice." And he went out, and he wept bitterly. Matthew chapter 26. Now, compare these actions of Peter to the reality I quoted earlier. Quotation. "Whosoever therefore shall confess me before men, him will I confess also before my Father, which is in heaven. But whosoever shall deny me before men, him will I also deny before my Father, which is in heaven." Matthew chapter 10. The stark reality is that by denying me before men, Peter failed the second challenge of Christ, and thus he truly cannot represent me on earth. It is thus highly unfortunate that the Catholic Church adopted Peter as their patron saint, for this meant that from its very inception, this church has been based on Peter's denial of the living Christ and the imposing of a graven image upon me. Thus, the very church that claims to represent me on earth has, from the very beginning, promoted a graven image of Christ that simply cannot lead people to salvation. And since the Catholic Church has influenced most succeeding Christian churches, the entire Christian religion is to this day based on a graven image of Christ. It is therefore promoting a false image of salvation. namely the broad way that leads to destruction, the way of imposing your graven images upon Christ instead of letting Christ lead you beyond the consciousness of death. You might conclude from this that there is a grave need for a complete reform of the Christian religion, which I am not disputing. However, for now, I am concerned that you do not fall for the temptation to focus on the mote in the eye of another. For if you are to win your personal victory, you have to first look at and remove the beam in your own eye. In the next chapter, we will take a very direct look at that beam. For in the modern world, you do indeed have a much better foundation for understanding it than what was available 2,000 years ago. Before we leave the topic of Peter and what he symbolizes, I will make one more point. Why did Peter actually follow me? Well, in part out of a pure motivation to work for the cause of God, and in part based on a selfish motivation. The latter is exposed by the following quotation. Then answered Peter and said unto him, Behold, we have forsaken all and followed thee. What shall we have therefore? And Jesus said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that you which have followed me in the regeneration, when the Son of Man shall sit in the throne of his glory, you also shall sit upon 12 thrones, judging the 12 tribes of Israel. And every one that had forsaken houses, or brethren, or sisters, or father, or mother, or wife, or children, or lands, for my name's sake, shall receive an hundredfold, and shall inherit everlasting life. But many that are first shall be last, and the last shall be first. Matthew chapter 19. Do you see what is behind Peter's request? He feels that he has given up something in this world in order to follow me. He feels he has lost something, and now he wonders what he will receive as a compensation. Truly, this springs from the underlying failure to pass the second challenge of Christ, for if Peter had been willing to let go of his graven images, he would have overcome the sense of loss. Only the graven images make it seem like the transient things of this world have any value, and that forsaking them can be a loss. Only the graven images can prevent you from seeing what you get by following the living Christ, namely that you get life instead of death. Nevertheless, Peter represents a person who is in the interim phase of having seen the Christ, but still being affected by spiritual blindness. Thus, I attempted to give Peter a vision that by forsaking the things in this world, he will receive something more valuable in the next world. This is not invalid, but it is truly a consequence of the fact that Peter still had many graven images left, and thus my vision was adapted to his limited state of consciousness. However, my point here is that people in the interim phase approach spirituality and religion with an often unrecognized motivation that is self-centered. They seek to gain something for themselves either in this world or the next. I will talk more about this later, but for now, I simply want to plant the seed in your mind that in order to work through the interim phase and fully overcome the consciousness of death, you must rise to a higher motivation. You must come to a point where your involvement with spirituality and religion is not self-centered, is not aimed at attaining something for yourself, meaning your separate mortal self. Instead, you need to understand and integrate the truth hidden in the following quotation. But when the Pharisees had heard that he had put the Sadducees to silence, they were gathered together. Then one of them, which was a lawyer, asked him a question, tempting him, and saying, Master, which is the great commandment in the law? Jesus said unto him, Thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind. This is the first and great commandment, and the second is like unto it. Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Matthew chapter 22. Only when you are motivated exclusively by love for God, love for others, and a true love for your real self, will you have escaped the consciousness of death that thinks it can own anything for itself, whether in this world or the next. It's not easy. But being in attachment with a lot of things of this world, it's not easy also, because many fears, many conflicts, many problems appear with that. When we try to understand what the Divine Spirit asks us and we follow this way, we have another kind of life and faith and confidence that miracles will come in our way to guide us and to transform everything. Okay, I stop here. The next day I will read the chapter 4, the beam in your own eye. It's more easier to see everything in the life of other people, in the eyes of others, naturally. The psychological way is to see different things inside of us. We will see that in the next chapter. Thank you for watching or listening. I wish you a very good day. Bye-bye.